Hey, this is Andrew Brown, and welcome to the AWS Cloud Project Bootcamp, where we are continuing on our implementation for DynamoDB into our application. So we just built a bunch of utility scripts, and now we are working on the implementation part. I'm just going to tell you that I made a video 3 hours long doing the implementation. However, the audio was not captured, and so I have to do this all over again. So what I had to do was go to my commits and find out where we left off, which was over here. And I've created a new branch called week 5 again. And I'm going to do it again, and hopefully it doesn't take 3 hours long. But the nice part is that we do have some of these commits to walk through, and they do solve a lot of issues I was having before. So this will help us speed through this. Instead of being 3 hours, it'll be a lot more compressed. But hopefully I can still bring in that great value that I had the first time recording that around. I will also keep week 5 around here as well, because we will have to reference that original one there. It's not really pulling up correctly, but I'll just drop down week 5 here and we will get to it. So let's go launch our environment, and mine's called week 5 again. And we'll go launch Git pod and we'll see what we have to do. And so what I found out when I was doing this the first time for week 5, I didn't finish all the implementations, and so the code in week 5 does need some adjustments, and I have made the adjustments, so we'll be bringing that stuff over here, and I'll explain why that stuff is. So looking at my commits, as I just did this today, it looks like the first thing I did was I updated the Flask, because this is something I'm getting kind of tired of doing, is doing the pip install every time. So let's go quickly do that. And so I'm just going to add a new line. Whoops, it is not listening here. It is not letting me enter. There we go. So I'm just going to go here and say -name, and we'll say Flask, and we'll go command pipe, and I'm just going to go cd backend Flask, and we'll do pip install -r requirements.txt. And so that way, when we come in here, we'll have a lot less trouble going on. The other thing I want to do here is put in Boto 3, because we are proceeding with the implementation. Oh, we already have it in here, so that's okay. I forgot we did in the utility, but that's one step that we did. Another thing that we'll adjust is put this if exists statement in our database, because when we want to run setup, it won't work because it will try to drop the database. I'll show you what I mean. So if I go here and if I cd into backend, it's not letting me cd in right now, but because I'm in the wrong folder. But I'm just saying that when we start up Docker Compose and we attempt to do our setup script, it just will fail because it will attempt to drop a database that already or doesn't exist yet. So the easy solution for that is in our bin directory for our database here, and for our seed, or sorry, our drop, or our drop, and we're just going to put a if exists in here, okay? I'm also going to bump up our fonts, because I'm sure you don't want to be looking at super small fonts here. So I'll do 24 here. Font terminal. 20 is fine, actually. I actually prefer 20. We'll go here and we'll put this to 20. I don't know why that shrunk. So there we go. Everything should be a bit bigger. And I always bump it up a few so it becomes 24 anyway. Okay, so those two things are fixed. So we'll be able to drop our database, no problem there. Okay, so let's see what we are doing next here. So probably what we want to do is get the app running, and then we'll just take a look and implement piece by piece what we want, okay? So I'm just doing a Docker Compose up. I think we did that pip install. We might have not done that. If we haven't, I'll just go ahead and do it right now. I think we can do it retroactively probably. -r requirements.txt, and we'll go ahead and do that. We'll go back over to Docker Compose, and I will wait for this to spin up. I'm going to tell you right now that in my first run through, I kept starting this up and it wasn't working correctly, so I had to completely shut it down, like do Docker Compose down and up. If you have to do that, then that's just what you have to do. Sometimes it works the first time around, sometimes it takes 3 tries, so just understand that consideration when dealing with this. But I'll see you back here in a moment, okay? All right, so things appear to be running. I'm going to check the ports tab. Our backend, our front end, our 5432, our 8000 are all working. So we will leave that stuff as it needs to be. I'm going to double check our Docker Compose file and just make sure that our DynamoDB is here. It is. Okay, great. I remember we commented it out before. I could not remember if it was still commented out, but it seems to be here. So let's take a look at our application and talk about what we probably would want to implement first. So the first thing we're going to do is sign in. So I'm going to do andrew@exampro.co, capital T, testing 1, 2, 3, exclamation mark, and we'll go ahead and sign in here. And so we are now signed in, and if we go to our messages tab, this is the first thing that we want to implement for our database pattern. So what we'll do is go to the back here, and we're going to go into our backend Flask. And well, I mean, first we need to create a DDB, like a DynamoDB object, just like how we had for, or library, just like how we had for our Postgres here. So I'm going to go here and call it ddb.py. And so let's take a look at what I had been doing prior. So I do have my commits where we've made corrections and fixed it in its implementation, but I'm going to go to week 5 here, and we're going to go to the back end because I didn't have time to do journaling. So we're just going to have to pull code from the stuff that I wrote. And in here, we'll go to lib, ddb, and we'll start to bring some stuff over. So what we'll do is go ahead and grab these import statements, and we'll go ahead and paste those in, and we'll say allow. And then we'll bring in the class definition and the client. So one key difference here between the way we're doing it here and the way we're doing it with the Postgres database library we created is the fact that this one is doing initialization, right? It's using a constructor to create an instance of that class, whereas here we aren't doing that. We are setting up a stateless class. So the thing that I have learned over time is that if you can do things without state, and that means like you don't have to keep track of things that are inside of the instance of the class, it is so much easier for testing because all you have to test is the inputs and outputs, and you just make sure the stuff that you pass in is very simple data structures. And so that's what you're going to see as we go through here. It does result in a little bit more verbose code, but the trade-off here is very easy to debug, very easy to test if we were to be writing test code, which is something that we probably would want to do at some point. So we have our DDB client, and so that is the start there. Now I just want to open up our bin directory and take a look at what we were doing there. So in our DDB, we did define some access patterns and stuff like that. So that was really good. So I guess the next thing is to pull in the code that's going to do the message groups. And so that is the immediate code right here, which is list message groups. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and grab this code, and then we're going to read through it and see what it does. Okay. So I paste in the code here, and we will scroll to the top. And, you know, like with the database driver, it was a bit, or sorry, the Postgres is that we had put in these generic ways of querying data just because for the most part, you know, it's easier to load it that way. But for this one, I decided to put the queries directly in this file. So that's just how it works. It's going to be slightly different. But let's take a look here. So the first thing is that we've hard coded our table name in here. And so one consideration is that if we were needing a production and a staging tables, because the only way you'd be able to do a staging environment is obviously in the cloud, just like you do a Postgres database. What we could have done is put an environment variable that said whether these are prod or staging tables, and then we could prefix it there, and that way it could have been like, this is prod, this is staging, or maybe just if it's staging, it would just say stage in front of it. But we're not doing that. We're hard coding the tables for now, and that shouldn't run into a problem unless we find that it does later down the road. So we've seen this code before. We did this in our bin DDB directory, so we already know how to do list message groups. So let's just take a look at what we have in comparison to what we did before and just see if there's any improvements we can make from the one we just copied in. So this is list conversations. That's how we did it. If we go down here, you can see that we, well, in this one, we didn't do a scanned index. So we probably should do that in our old one because we should be really explicit about the ordering of it. And I can't remember if it's true or false by default, but we'll play around with that and make sure we get the right value as we do it. I also do kind of prefer this shorter syntax after working with this for a bit, so we'll do that and call that PK, and we'll call this PK. Okay, and so that looks good. Here it's returning the total capacity. We don't need it for here unless we're going to do something with it. Maybe we could log that out and then collect that information later on and then figure out our spend, but that's not something I'm interested in doing right now. So it's pretty much the same. The only difference is that instead of dumping the data here and displaying it, we're going to query it, return the items, and then iterate through the items and give it this kind of interesting structure here so we can kind of understand what it's doing here. So that's message groups, and so that's pretty darn straightforward. So let's make our way over to the app.py and start calling this code. So I'm just going to close some of these tabs here, and we are going to look where we list message groups. So we'll go to message groups here, and I just noticed that this returns all of them, that we hard-coded the user handle. So the thing is that I found out, and I didn't realize that I caused a lot of grief for boot campers, but in last week we had created an activity via Postgres, and I had this hard-coded value. And the thing was, I didn't realize that everyone was changing the name here to be something that was themselves as the first user, which makes sense. But that completely broke things for them, and they had to know to update this value. So this week, we're not working with these hard-coded values. We're actually going to grab the information that we need. And in this case, what we are trying to grab is the, I guess it is the handle. We want the handle from here. But at this point, what we use is we use Cognito to log in, and it should return the sub. And the sub happens to be the Cognito user ID. So I'm just going to pull up aws.amazon.com here. And we'll just sign into the console here. And I'm just going to make my way over to Cognito just to show you what I'm talking about. So we go over here into the pool, and I have two users. And if we click into here, we have this user ID. It's technically a UUID, but they call it user ID, also known as a sub. And so with that value, we should be able to extract out the relevant information that we need. So let's take a look at what we have in week 5 and see if we need to rework it in any way. So I'm going to go into the app.py, and we're going to look for message groups here. And it looks like I hard-coded it, so I didn't even implement that. And so what I would have done is we would have implemented it in the new one. And so let's go take that code here. I did this literally 4 hours ago, and we'll go see what I did for that implementation. So in here, we want to go down to app.py. Where's app.py in here? Let me go back. That looks fine. We'll go into this one here. List users, setups, compose file. I guess it comes a bit later. So I think the thing was that what I did first was I started listing out the Cognito users, and that's fine. We can do that first. So what we'll do here is we know that we need to get these users. Let me just think about this for a second, okay? Okay, now I remember what the thing is that we need to solve here. So the thing is that in order for us to match up a user from their Cognito user ID, is that we need to store that in our database. So if we take a look at our c.sql file, which is under db seeds.sql, you'll see I have this mock data here. And the idea is that we need to actually populate this with the actual Cognito user ID, because that's how we're going to get the additional information like their handle. So if we go over here, of course we could just hard code these values, but I thought it would have been a lot nicer to just have a script in order to populate those. So what we're going to do is in our bin directory, we're going to make a new folder here, and I'm going to call this RDS, or sorry, not RDS, but Cognito, and we're going to go ahead and list users. So if we were to go look up the AWS CLI here, and we'll go look up Cognito. I bet there is a way to list users. And when I say I bet you there is, I know there is. So if I type in users here and go down below, you'll see that we have list users. And if we just expand this a bit, we can go down to examples and see a very simple example. So all we need is our user pool ID to see what the results are. So what I'm going to do is go to terminal here and go up to the AWS CLI and type in clear. We're going to bring this over and we'll type it in and see what we get. So we'll type in AWS, Cognito, IPD, or was it IDP? I forget. IDP. Oh, that's what I did. List users, -- user pool ID, I believe it was. And so we'll go get that user pool ID, which is 1 up here. We'll grab that, go back, and we'll paste that in and see if that works. Do we get any data back? We do. So that's really nice. We can, of course, filter this data further. So if we type in query, I can try to get data by typing in things like users, and then square braces, like that, and maybe attributes. And it didn't like the way I typed it, so maybe I could just try that instead. No. But anyway, my point is that there are ways for us to narrow down the data, but we aren't going to need to get the data via the CLI. We want to be able to extract that stuff out and insert into our database. And so that's what we're going to do here is basically implement this using the SDK, and we'll query our data and then insert them into the database. So you're lucky because I already have the implementation. And I probably spent like 30, 40 minutes before writing this. So literally I just shaved off a lot of time for you here. But what we're going to do is if you go into the commit history of week 5 again, and you look at this implementation, we have this file here. So I'm going to grab the contents of it and I'll walk you through on how it works. Okay, so we have that there. So the idea is that we need to get the Cognito user pool ID. That's something that we don't actually set in our environment. I think we can double check here to type in env grep. Now I might have it set because I set it before, but you might not have this set. So what you'll want to do is grab your Cognito pool user ID and go down here and type in export, and then AWS Cognito user pool ID equals that, and then go back there. And you know what? I'm going to do that again because I don't trust it when I have those other characters in there. I'm going to just wrap it in double quotes so it works. And we'll do gp-env. Okay. Now, not only that, you're going to also need to update that in your Docker Compose file. So this is going to be used by our backend. So actually, no, we don't need to do that. That's totally fine. It's hard-coded here. So we could just, if we wanted to, replace this and do this. Again, totally optional. You don't have to do this. But since I'm over here, I'm just going to do it because I opened the file. But anyway, coming back to our list users, we set our user pool ID. We are using Boto3 as the client. If you're wondering how did I know how to get this code, you can just look it up and say Boto3 list users Cognito. Because these AWS CLI commands pretty much have like a one-to-one mapping with the SDK, so they're almost always there and you can pull them up. And we might have tried asking ChatGPT before, but what I found in my last session is ChatGPT gave me a lot of incorrect information. And so now I'm just kind of not going towards that approach anymore. I'm not sure if that's the older version or not, but the idea here is that they show you the information. You can see it's very simple. List users, user pool ID, attributes to get, the ones you want, things like that. There's only 2 users in our pool here, so it's not like there's a lot there. So anyway, we have the user pool ID, we pass it along. We want to get the preferred username and the sub being the user's ID. From there, we'll get a response back called users. We'll dump that out to make it look pretty. And then we'll restructure this data into a dictionary. This structure in particular, what it's going to produce, well, we'll just take a look and see what it does. And you can see exactly what it is. And just to make it a bit prettier, I'm going to just take this line down here. And we'll delete that out and save it. And we'll run this again. Actually, we have to chmod that file first, so we'll just do u+x. Run it. And so the data structure it's coming back here with is this here. So this was the original one, where we got back attributes, name, values, things like that. And so if you go up here, all this is doing is iterating through this, and it's using this next statement to grab this value here based on that name to that value. Okay. This, and then we put it into a dictionary, and we use the handle as the key and the actual sub as the value. Okay. And so when we get this structure back, this is going to work really well for us for what we're using. In the original video, I actually walked through all this, and we went back multiple times and adjusted it. So we're kind of speeding through this here, which is, I mean, I guess nice, because this will make this week a lot easier. But anyway, so we have that data coming back. So that is one part of this solve. So let me just give me a moment here to think what's next. All right, so now that we have a way of listing out the users, what we need to do is create a new script in order to update those user IDs in our database. So what we're going to do is create a new script called update cognito user ID. So in our DB directory here, yes, we'll create a new one, and we'll call it this. And so in this commit, you can just go get the code. So this is going to be all of this. And we'll go ahead and paste that in. And we'll just go ahead and walk through this here. So the idea here is we need to load the Postgres database. I can't remember if we've done this before, but the idea is that we are going to use these 3 lines in order to append the current path, because when we run these scripts, like lib.db would work in app.py, but because this is a directory here and lib is on the outside, like out here, we have to use a bunch of things to import it. Okay. So the idea here is we have a function that is going to be used to update the users, the cognito user ID within our database. So we're passing in the handle in the sub. And so that's going to execute an update here. So you can see set cognito user ID based on the sub that you pass in and the handle that is provided. And then we use query commit in order to execute that. On the cognito side, and we just did this in the list users, but we bring in we use the client, the same client, and we do the exact same code here. The only difference is nothing. It's basically the exact same thing as our list users, except we're not printing it out, we're just returning the values there. So we get back that data structure there. We iterate through those users. The key and value is the handle in the sub. And so the idea here is we can just execute this update users with cognito ID by passing the handle and sub. And so that will update those 2 fields for us. So before we can do that, we need to start seeding our data. And actually in our setup, we will go ahead and add this script here, because that is the new one that we need to add. So I'll go here and say update cognito user IDs as such. And we're going to go down here and go ahead and seed our data. Now, are we running our stuff? We are. That is good. So I'll go here and we'll do bin db setup. And hopefully that works. First try. And it looks like we ran into an issue. We didn't do a chmod on the on that new directory, or that new file. So we'll just go ahead and do that right now. Update, and we'll try this again. And it looks like we're having a slight issue here. I do believe it is this script that is giving us the issue. So I'm going to just try to execute that separately, okay? And so it's printing out the information. I noticed right here that it's not showing me what is being passed in here. So I'm not 100% sure what the values are. And so I just want to rule that out. So in our database file or DB file in our lib directory, we made some changes, which is we print out the additional values of params. So in here, oh, we do add it in here, but I guess the thing is that we might have not passed it along in this. So it's just missing here. We did it last time. We just forgot it for params. So let's go ahead and try this again. Hit up. And so now we can see exactly what's being passed along. So that looks valid to me. So that indicates to me that that probably is working correctly, because if those SQL statements are inserting, then we should be in good shape. Let's go back and take a look at our setup file and see if maybe we introduced a bug there. So that's under our bin directory, into our DDB, into our, DB, into our setup. Yeah, it seems like it should just work. So we'll just try that again. Unable to open X server. I'm not sure why it's saying that. But one thing we could do is, I didn't do this before, and I kind of want to just be consistent here. So I'm just going to put all this coloring stuff in here. Because I just want to see what is being executed and where are we running into a problem. But I suppose that these are bash scripts, so that wouldn't necessarily work the same way. Are these all bash scripts? Yeah, so this is probably the first time we've done it with this one. So for the time being, I'm just going to do print and just say DB update Cognito user IDs. So I'm just trying to understand where this is happening, because I never saw that before. So it sees the data. Huh. Yeah, I'm not sure. Just give me a second, okay? So according to Stack Overflow, they're suggesting that this is the issue when it's trying to run this one here, which I'm a bit confused as to why that's happening. So what I'm going to do is just list out the directory and see if I can pinpoint a specific reason why this is happening. Just see if it's if there is some kind of permission issue here, but there's not, because it's set to be executable. So I'm not sure what its problem is, as we've been running these things nonstop without a problem. But I guess for the time being, I'm just going to run this separately, and I don't want to really try to debug this issue because I don't know what's causing it. So otherwise, we're going to be here all day, and I want to continue on with our implementation. So now that we actually have those records inserted, that means that we can move on to implementing the rest of our stuff here. And actually, just one other thing that I wanted to check, which is if we were using the production or development RDS instance. For you, it might be stop, but for me, I think I might need to, yeah, I'm running against production. So it could be that that's my issue there. And I really don't want to be dropping the production database, but I might have. And if I have, I might have to reset up my Postgres, but I guess we'll find out there. So what happens if I change this? Well, these are local, so this has nothing to do with that, but I know for this, we definitely want to change this to be, I guess it wouldn't be, because it would only be the production class that would try to connect to the production app. It wouldn't have been what we're running here locally. But anyway, I'm going to comment that out, and I'm going to do a Docker compose down. And then when that's down, I'm going to do an up, because that seems to be the most reliable way to get Docker to work for me. And so I'll be back here in a second when it's all running, okay? All right, so everything is running again, and so we are in good shape. And so I guess the next thing is to actually use Cognito to figure out who is being the user logged in there. Sorry, I'm not so articulate here, but this is my second time doing it, and I'm a little bit tired. So what we're going to do is make our way over to app.py, and in here we need to have that Cognito user pool code that we have. We've only implemented it once in our home. So I'm just going to go back here and look for our home endpoint. So there it is. And so there is some information that is useful for us. I'm going to go ahead and copy that there. Good. And we'll just go up a line here and we'll paste it in. And so we don't need the username here. We want the sub, and I already know that it returns a sub. So what we're going to do here is do this instead. And I'm just going to whoops. I'm just going to go down a line here and type in claims and do sub and just call it Cognito user ID here. And then we'll pass that in instead, Cognito. And I realize we're doing it on the wrong function. I'll just fix it here in a second. Don't worry, okay? User ID instead of passing the handle, because we'll have it figured out on the other side. We're not going to get the handle from this side here. And so here is our old code. And so we'll bring it over and bring this up. And down here, we actually want it to return a 401 if it's not authenticated. The reason why is that if it's a 401, that means that you're not logged in. You're trying to access something that only a logged in user can. 403 is if you're trying to access something you're not supposed to be allowed to access. That's a different story there. So we need this to be message groups. So we'll go ahead and change that over. And we still want this to be called model. So we'll change that like that. And so that should resolve that issue. I'm not sure why we're having that. It's probably because of indentation. So is it more happy now? Great. So that's message groups run. Let's go take a look at that code and see what we have in there. Services, message groups. So we still have this mocked data here. So we're going to have to blow all this code away. So what I'm going to do is go not into these commits here, but I'm going to go into our week 5. And we will go into services here. And we will go into message groups. And we'll go ahead and grab this code and see what we have here. So we'll paste this in and replace it. And so what we're doing here, we're not using Memento. That's going to be later on the road, so we'll take that out. But we're importing our DDB. We're importing our database because we need our database in order to find the record or to find the UID or the handle from the UID. So here we're using a query value that returns a single result. All we want is that user ID. We're going to print that out. We're going to create a new client and we're going to list out our message groups passing in that UID because that's the only thing that we need based on our access pattern as we saw here before that if we want to get all message groups, we just use the my user UID. So we will print that out. I also did find out that we can do this, so I don't have to constantly have 2 lines when printing things out, so we will do that instead. And so I think this should work with the exception that we need to create this query. So we'll go here and go under the database and create a new folder, and we'll call this one users. And in here, we will create a new file called UUID from handle.sql. And so here it's pretty simple. We'll just do select from public users where users dot cognito user ID equals the value we passed in. So that's percentage, parentheses, cognito user ID S. And then from there, we want to just return the user's UID. Yeah, that's what we want. And I say UID from handle, which is not true. Let's go back and take a look here. What it actually is, sorry about that. What we're actually doing here in the message groups is it's not UID from handle because that's what I originally thought I had to do, but it's really UID from cognito user ID, okay? And so what we'll do here is just take this and replace that. And this is what is actually getting passed in. And then from here, we will pass in that as well. I'm just going to bring this down onto a new line because it's going to be a lot nicer looking if we do that. Okay, and we will go get the ID here. And so that is really what we want happening here. And did we rename that file or is it still called that? So we'll rename this and call this cognito user ID. And so that should return exactly what we want. We can also put a limit on here. There should only be one of this, but just for the sake here, I'm going to put that on the limit on there. I didn't do that before. And so that should return the UID. And so this, in theory, should work. So we'll go back to our application here. I'm just going to shrink it down. We'll give this a refresh. And we don't have any results. That's okay. We'll go ahead and inspect. It probably is a 500 error. I see a 401. That could be, sorry, my throat was getting dry there. That could be because we have an expired token. There is a small thing we need to do to fix our implementation, which we will do at some point for Cognito. And it's very easy to do, but I don't want to waste any time doing it. So for the time being, if our token is expired, we're just going to re-log in, okay? But we will resolve it, and we already have the fix for it. It's just I want to make that in a separate video. Okay, so no token provided in the application. So probably the reason that is happening is it might not be passing along the access token. So if we go to our network tab here, we are looking for that bearer token, that header that we set on the home page. So we'll go down here and take a look. It says 401. We go here. I see no bearer access token. So we apparently need to go update our client-side JavaScript. So what I'm going to do is go here on the left-hand side into our front-end React application, open up our source, go into our pages, and in our homepage feed JS, and then we don't do the cookies anymore. We'll just delete that was supposed to be gone when we put this in. I just forgot to do that. We go down here, we have this access bearer token. And so this is always required to be passed along when we're doing authenticated pages. So we know we're going to be doing it for a few of them. So let's just put them in there all at once and it'll make it easier. So message groups is one of the pages that we need to put that in there. So this will just go above here and we'll paste that in. Great. And I'm going to go just ahead and delete this because this is, oops, not that line, but that part there. And so I'm going to go ahead and do a message group page as well, because that's another page that's going to require it. So we'll go ahead and paste that on in there. And then another place that's going to need it is the actual form for the message create. I know we're going to get to that later on, but we're just going to put it in there now so we don't have to worry about it. And it's called message form. And in this one, we already have headers. So I'm just going to go and paste this in. And we just want to take out these two lines here. And so now we have the authorization there with the bearer token. Okay. So, and we need probably a comma on the end there so that doesn't complain. So I think those are the three main ones right now that we need in order to have that authorization. I'm going to go back here, refresh, and see if I get any data. I don't see anything yet. That is okay. We'll go back over here. We're getting a 500. That's a lot better than a 401. We'll go take a look at what's causing that 401 here. Okay, so we'll go here. We'll go to our terminal. Oh, and we already have our logs over here. And it says message groups.run unexpected keyword cognito user ID. I'm a bit surprised because I could have swore we updated that, but let's go take a look here under our backend, into our services, into our message groups, and we have a spelling mistake. So that is our problem there. We give it a refresh, and I still have a 500 error. So I'm going to go back over to here. It says no such file or directory, SQL users, cognito, UID from cognito user ID. So let's go double check and make sure that we spelt that all correctly here. Probably isn't. So UID from cognito user ID. Cognito looks correct to me, but this one says it's in activities. This sometimes happens, which is kind of frustrating, so I'll have to move that up. And so now it's in the right location. Just be aware that that happens with VS Code, that sometimes you have nested folders and you don't mean to do that. We'll give that a refresh there. We still have a 500 error. Now we have a none type object is not subscriptable. Line 91 for query value JSON 0. So I think the reason why this is happening is if we go into our lib, into our DB, and the reason I know this is because I encountered this before and I had to fix it. But in our query value, I'm just going to double check here if that's true. We have the params. We're passing it into here. So that is not the problem. Okay, but down below here it says query value JSON return 0 because it's calling this value on what is being returned, but it's saying that none is being returned. So that would indicate to me that the data is null. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go anywhere like app.py. And I'm just going to go and put a new line, hit save, because then it outputs our SQL because of the weird way that the puts works. But I just want to see what it's passing in here. So it is passing in the cognito user ID here, cognito user ID. And so it should return a value. This should work. So this really depends on what's in our database. So let's go double check what's in our database by using our connect command. And we'll say select all from users. And I'm going to do just X on because, or X auto, because it'll be easier for us to read. And so we have these two keys here. Oh, the cognito user IDs never got updated. So that means that there is something wrong going on here. These should have been updated because we did this before when we ran our seed data. So if we did that, or that, not seed, but the cognito one. So if we go here into the CD directory, we'll do bin DB, and then it was the update cognito users ID. And this ran, and it's showing that these are executing. So here it says, committing with it, update users, put this value here for where the handle matches that, right? So that should be updated. We'll go back and check. Now they're set. I don't know why it didn't set before, but that's okay. At least we solved that really quickly. That's not what I had before, but that's all right. And so I'm going to go back here, refresh. We're going to go back to our logs, and we probably have a new error. What is our new error? No, it returns a 200. There's no problem, actually. So why didn't we see stuff come back here? So I'll give this a hard refresh. And we will bring this on down here. And we'll see. Cookies is not defined. Yeah, we don't use cookies anymore. Okay, yeah, it's because we deleted out those lines. So what I'm going to do is go back here, and I didn't even do this in week 5 again, so this is actually good that we're doing this, is we're going to go back to our home page. If you're wondering how I'm bringing up this menu up here, I'm hitting Control P. Control P. It's very useful. It allows you to search all these files here on the side. I've been trying to avoid using it so you know where things are, like by the navigation here, but I'm just getting kind of tired clicking on this, so I'm going to be doing more Control Ps. So in our home page, we have this check off thing here. And that's what we replace our cookie stuff with. Now, we probably should abstract this into its own function, into its own file, so that we can reuse this constantly. And I think that's something I want to do. Now, I didn't do that before, and I keep saying I'm going to do that at some point in the future. Let's make that point now, because I feel like we're saving so much time with us doing Cognito again, or at least me doing it again, or sorry, not Cognito, DynamoDB, that we have time to do this right now. So what I'm going to do is go into the front-end React application, and we need to put this code somewhere. We don't really have any folders for this yet, so I'm going to say new folder. I'm just going to call it lib. I don't know what else to call this. And this is just checkoff, so I'll make a new file here called checkoff.js. And so what I'll do is I'll go over here, and I'm going to go grab this function here, and we'll say cut. And whoops, it vanished here. I'm going to go ahead and paste, and we'll see if we can abstract this into a more generic function. So this says off here. I'm just trying to decide how this is going to work, because I could import the auth here, but I have to import it in the other place. I guess it gets configured at the app.js level, right? Yes, it does. So it's okay if I import it into here. That's fine. So going back to our homepage feed, I'm going to go all the way to the top here. I'm going to copy this. It looks like it's not being even used now, so I can probably just cut it out of here. Whoops. Cut. And we can just place it in here. Paste. Like that. And so maybe what we can do is just import this instead. So I'll go import checkauth from... so we are in pages, so we have to go up a directory, lib, put a single quotation around that, check auth, great. And so hopefully what that's going to do is return this. I think we have to do an export on this, right? We have to export it. Yeah, export default, like something like that, right? So we'll go here back to our checkoff, and I'm just going to say down here, up here, this function checkoff. Like that. And so then we'll have that function available to us. I'm just trying to see if I'm passing anything else additional here. We are using this set user here, so I suppose what we should do is pass this function here, because otherwise it's not going to know what that is. It also might not know what user is. No, that's fine. I think that's all it needs is this set user for this to work. So now what we can do is go back to our home page, and we will look where checkauth is, checkauth, and now we can just pass in set user, and that's going to be an easier way for us to work with that. So I'm hoping that that still works. I'm going to go back to our home page here. I really want to make this clickable at some point. Refresh, see if we get any errors. We do. Checkoff is not defined. It is, because we imported it up here. But it's the default import, so I'm just going to put a lowercase letter here, and now it is working, probably will work correctly. Refresh that. There we go. So I still believe that it is working correctly, because we are getting a console log out of here. And that's going to work really well for our future fix, which is where we have to wrap it and make sure that it refreshes the token when it expires. But now we can take this checkoff function here and we'll go over to our message groups. JS here. I'm going to go ahead and just paste this in. And I'm going to look for the old one, which is this one here. And we'll delete that out. And then we'll just pass in set user here. So we'll say set user, which is all good. And we will do the same thing for this one here. We will paste that in, check auth. We'll find the other check auth function here. Delete that out. We will say set user. So that one is good, that one is good. And I'm sure we need it for all sorts of pages, but I'm just going to do it for the ones that we need. And so that should resolve our issue. And you can see if we go to messages, do we now finally get what we want to see? We still don't see stuff, but it is returning this. So clearly this checkoff part is working. We'll go to our network tab. We'll check the message groups. Is it returning any data? It's not returning me any data. Interesting. Okay, so let's actually see if we have any message groups. Well, actually, we never seeded our data for DynamoDB, so that actually kind of makes sense why we're not seeing anything. So what we'll do is go get out of SQL here, type in clear, and we're going to go ahead and just run that stuff. So it's under bin. We're in the right directory? Yes, we are. Bin DDB, and it's going to be schema load. And then we have seed, I believe. There we go, creates all of our records. We'll go back here, refresh. And we don't see anything, but we didn't get any errors. So that's at least good, I think. So this is showing empty, which is not what I was expecting. Let's do our scan to see, or not our scan, but let's do DDB patterns, list conversations, and see what we get here. And so it showed scanned 1, and it actually is returning a record. So we should be seeing at least one of these. And it's weird that we're not getting that back because we should, based on the stuff. The only thing that I can think of is that we messed up our query some way. So let's go back and take a look at our, what do you call it? Our lib directory here into our DDB, and we will take a look at our list message group. So this looks correct, the table name looks correct, the PK looks correct, the scan forward's fine. We're limiting by 20, that is totally fine. The my user ID should be fine. We could also look at these logs here and see what is being returned. So I'm just going to simplify these params here and just say, I don't want to see the client multiple times. But I do want to see the results here. Okay. And what we'll do is just drag this up, go back to our logs, and we'll refresh this page. And it probably won't show us what we want to see right away. We probably have to like modify something. And then it will output some stuff. Okay. So you know what? It looks like it is returning data. Probably what's missing is a return. Is there a return missing? No, return is right there. Let's go back up here for a second. So we have our select statement, which is fine. UID is fine. Items, oh, it is showing empty right here. Items is empty. Huh. That's interesting. But our other one was returning results, right? If we go here. Yes. So something must be messed up with our stuff here. But yeah, the handle matches here, so that's fine. And so this one is matching my user ID. Yeah, that should work. Does it return that field there? Message group UID, PK. So the PK is GRP9F3E7. If we go down here, we can take a look here as well. 9F3E7E8. Is that right? I can't tell. I'm going to just make a new file here. Don't care what it is. We'll just go ahead and paste this in. Whoops. Come on, paste in. We'll go up here to done. No, I just said always allow here. Okay. We'll go here, just copy this here for a second. Whoops. Just paste for the life of me. We'll go make a new file, a new text file, Can I write something here? Thank you. There we go. Now I can paste in. Whatever. So we grabbed it from here, I think. I can't remember because we were goofing around with this text file so much. Okay. And so that's that one. Now, if we go up to this one here, is it the same thing? It looks like it is. It is. It matches 1-to-1. So what the heck is our problem? And so this is the thing, is that I did this one way and then I'm doing it again and I'm getting different errors, which is fun, eh? CRUD messages, that should be right. PK, match on that. That should be fine. Scan index forward, expression PK equals my user ID. Huh. Interesting. The only other thing I can think of is like the Docker Compose file, it will load up. Oh yeah, we don't have that implemented. So when we were doing this message group, I think I know what the problem is. If we go back to our DDB file here, up here we have this AWS endpoint URL. And so if this environment variable is present, it will use the development one, otherwise it'll use production. Right now it's trying to query against tables that don't exist. And so that is what our issue is. So we need to make sure that we set this endpoint, AWS endpoint URL. And so if we go down to our Docker Compose, I'm going to double check to see if we set it. And it's not here, and that's our reason why this isn't working. So we'll go here and we will say http://DynamoDB local port 8000. And instead of doing localhost, we have to do this because the host names are basically the container names here. I actually tried changing this to DDB previously, and then it just didn't work. So we're going to just stick with the full name here because that is what it likes. So we'll go down here and do a Docker Compose down. And we'll wait for that to completely down. So it's already erroring out on the down for some reason. Did that shut down? I don't think so. So we'll try it again. It's very finicky. It does not want to shut down today. I think those are down now. That is great. I'm going to do a Docker Compose up with this new one set, the AWS endpoint URL, and I'll see you back here in a moment, okay? All right, so it looks like it errored out, and this happens. So just do a Docker Compose up and just try again until it works, okay? So I'm going to do this a few times until it works. If this happens to you, I'm so sorry, but it's just my experience. All right, so I did a Docker Compose up again, and it looks like our application probably should be running now. I'm going to go back here, refresh, and now I finally see our message. So we are making some progress, which is great. So now that we have that, the next thing is we click into it, and it has this @Bako. Now we know based on our visual diagram, which is somewhere here. Let me pull it up here. Give me 2 seconds. I'll go find it. Here we go. I found it. So from the diagram we produced earlier, we said that when you click a message group, you need the message group UUID in order to display that conversation. So for that reason, we need to change this out to be, instead of @Bako, it's going to be or the handle, it's going to be whatever it is that we need it to be. So what I'm going to do is make my way over to the app.js, and we'll scroll on down to the message groups here. So we will go ahead and find that. Where are you? Here it is. And so instead of having this @ in here, it's going to be the message group UUID. I think originally I made it UUID, but this time I'm being more verbose because I found that to be a lot more useful. And so that is something that we will need to pass along in our message group. So we'll make our way over to our message group, and we will look for that endpoint here. So instead of a handle, we want to just do params message group UUID. Okay, and so we'll go ahead and just delete that out there. And so that looks pretty good for me. Now, I did say before that we were going to implement more restrictions or limitations on here on the table where we have that begins with stuff. So if we go back over to our bin directory here into DDB, into patterns and list conversations, or maybe we just did it for get conversations. I don't remember which one we did it for. And this is opening all over the place, not where I want it to open. We have this begins with value. So what I want you to do is go ahead and grab this line, We'll copy it and we'll go ahead and just, whoops, select this line, and then we'll just replace it so it has this begins with year thing here. And so we'll have to go back over here and grab this. Now we've hard-coded this value of year in, and I'd rather not do that. I think I would rather get the date time for the year. So we'll just say date time year Python. How do we get that? And so there is, I suppose, this way. I feel like in my code I already have it. So let's just go ahead and grab the more correct answer here. So I'm just going to scroll down here and see if I can find it. Year. Yes, so I think I prefer to do it this way. So we'll go ahead and grab it like this. And if you can't grab it, you can just write it out here. It's not a big deal. And I'm just going to paste this above here. We'll indent that line. And so the idea is that we're bringing in this expression. So we'll do that. I'll put that in there. And instead, we will just now pass in the year. Okay. And we'll go back and do this retroactively for our conversation script. And we'll go ahead and grab that. And we'll just go ahead and paste that. Now, I don't know if I've imported date time. Yes, it is. So that's good. We'll make sure we also have it on here as well, because there's no reason we can't do it for both list conversations. So go ahead and grab the same line there, paste it on in, make sure that it is there. Mine didn't paste, so I'll just paste that again. And I'm going to go ahead and grab this line here. And we'll go above and just paste that in. And I'm going to go and grab this line here and paste it in. Okay, great. So now will filter based on, whoops, we don't want that there. That will break things. And we need to fix the indentation there. But the idea is that this will apply a filter on the year. And then we have the 20 limit. Now, what kind of challenges do we have to do to make the pagination work when we're outside that year? I'm not sure. When we run into that problem, we'll go and solve it. And hopefully we're not changing our data model. But let's just make sure that still works. I'm going to go back here and refresh. And it looks like we ran into an issue. So I'm going to go back over here to terminal. And this is probably going to be server side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and pull up Docker and see what containers are running. Hopefully they're still all running. And we'll give it a moment for them to appear. There they are. I'm going to right click here, go view logs. And so we can see datetime has no attribute datetime, which is totally fine. It's because it probably isn't supposed to call it twice like that. So I'll just take that out there and refresh. Okay, we'll go back down. Year is not defined. Well, yes, it is. It's right here. Year is not defined. Oh, it's called current year. That's why. So we'll just change this to year. Okay. And I guess we introduced that mistake a few places. So we'll do this here, and then we will go to our conversations here. Year. Okay, great. And so if we go back here and refresh, well, we still don't see it. Now what's wrong? Invalid int type for string. Oh, you know what? We should just cast this as a string to resolve any issues. So just str. Because it might not take a the year like that. And I actually do believe that I had to do that before. So it's not a big deal. So we'll do that. Go to our list conversations, do the same thing. Great. And so we'll go back here, refresh. And we still know it's back. Okay, great. So now if we click into it, it's still doing @Baco because that is what our click value is. So what we'll have to do is go here on the left-hand side and make our way over to our front-end application into our components. We're looking for that message group item because we want to replace the handle with the message group UID. So if we go down to message group item here, we're looking for handle. So the handle would be set in the over here probably. Just close this out here. Here. And so instead we want to use UUID because I remember that's what we're passing back as our data. If you're not confident about that, you can just go and right click and inspect here. And under the network tab, we can actually see that that's what it is under message groups. And it's not showing the response now, but if we refresh this here for a second, whoops. If we go back a page, sorry, and we check the output, it's returning an error, come on, return the data. Let me guess, the token expired. Token expired, of course. So again, this is a known problem. We'll fix this soon enough, just not in this video, okay? So we'll do capital testing, 1, 2, 3, exclamation mark, sign in. And so we'll go back to our messages, but I just want to show you that I know that where that data is coming from. The UUID is here, okay? So what we'll do is go back over here. And so the UUID needs to be set here. We're not going to match on the handle anymore. We're going to match on UUID, so we'll do that. The params coming in here is going to be message group UUID. So that's how it's going to know how to select the correct one on the message group item. Okay, so that's great. We'll go ahead and refresh. And what we're looking for now is if we hover over this here in the bottom left corner, it should have the group UUID. You can see it down here. And it is, so we click into there and that looks good, but we don't have the messages. So that is the next thing that we need to implement. So what we'll do is look at our access path, or like here, what kind of data do we need to display this? We need to know the message group UUID. So that's something that we need to pass back in our query on the message group page. So we'll go find that page here. I'll drop it down, not to be confused with the message groups page, but we go here. And in here, we are passing the message group UUID already. Oh, okay, so we were already doing that. I don't recall doing that, but that's great that we did it. And so, well, that's for loading the messages. That makes sense. Okay, so that's great. So then basically what we need to do is go server side and start implementing that code. So going into our backend here, we'll open up our app.py, and we're going to need something very similar here for that. Hopefully it's one down below. Yeah, so this is hard-coded for the sender and receiver, but this is for creating a message, right? No, this is just the GET request. Okay, and yeah, it's not going to be this anymore handle. It's going to be message group UUID, and so we'll just take these two out here. Messages.run, again, it's not all this stuff. It's just going to be message group UUID. And I'll just do it this way. We'll paste it in here. One other thing that we probably should be doing is checking permissions, whether someone's allowed to actually read a conversation. So if you click into here and you have this message group UUID, what if you just put in a random one? There's nothing preventing you from reading other people's messages if you have that string. So we probably don't have time to implement that today because that wasn't something that we thought about, but we will make sure we solve that before the end of the bootcamp. So I'm going to just assume that we're going to pass in the Cognito user ID and do some kind of authentication on it or something like that. So what I'm going to do is copy a good chunk of this because this is pretty much what we need for down here. I'm just going to paste it below here as such. And so the major thing that we're changing is this. So we're bringing this in here and we're replacing it here. Okay, and we are bringing in that Cognito user ID. So we're going to just go there and paste that in like that. We'll fix our indentation because Python is fussy about indentation. We'll have to bring it in one more. I think that is okay. And this is the old one, so we'll just delete that out. It's still messed up the indentation. There we go. And so that is resolving that issue there. But yeah, in the case that you didn't have access, it would return a 403. So that'll be something we'll have to figure out. But let's go over to our services and we'll go into our messages and we'll go back into week 5 and take a look at what we have for that. So we go over here into our services. Again, this is week 5, not week 5 again, or week 5 again. We'll go here and we will copy the contents here. Very simple code, so maybe this will be pretty straightforward. But we will go ahead and replace all of this stuff here in our messages.py. And so it takes a message group UUID and expects you to pass it in. It calls the client. It's going to call list messages. So now we're going to make our way over to our lib directory and go into our DDB. And we'll need to do the list messages here, which passes similar fields. So going back over here, we're going to go to our backend Flask app. We're going to go into the lib directory. We'll go into DDB. And you'll notice like I just didn't copy this entire file because we have to tweak it as we go because I made modifications as I found out along the way. So, you know, you can't just copy paste things in bulk. You really do have to follow along with me here. Okay. So I'm going to go down here and paste in the list messages. We can see we have the client, the message group UUID. The table name is being passed in. I want to go with our shorter form here with the PK and the PK. This doesn't have our other things on here, like our other limits. So let's go ahead and put those on there. I think we can just scroll up a bit here and get the other example. Yeah, so we'll grab the same line as before, that key expression, and then we'll just replace that. That is just going to add in that year stuff. And then we will grab the year here as well, and we'll go ahead and paste this above. And so I think that was the only modification we needed, except we need the year in here as well. Okay, so that looks a lot better to me. Client query params, the item goes in here, it iterates it. We've seen this process before, very similar to what we were doing. The only other thing is that we probably should try to grab, we didn't pass it in here, where is it? The Cognito user ID, we didn't do anything with that. So if we go back to the, did we do it in here or did we do it in the message groups? Yeah, so in the message groups here, we didn't do that in there either. Sorry, let me go to the right place. So in the back end, we go to the message groups. Yeah, so we did this thing here where we get the user ID. And so I think we should bring that over into the messages and paste that on in here, because even though we aren't doing a permissions check right now, we will in the future. So I'm just setting this up so we're in good shape for later. And we did pass in the Cognito user ID. So here we'll know who that is, but we'll have to figure out a way to check. And that might really affect our model because we don't really know exactly who's in the full conversation of a message group. So, but anyway, DB client, that's fine. List messages, this all looks good. I'm hoping that this works. We'll go back, we'll refresh, and we will take a look at what errors we get. Let's see if it even made it to the server here. It says here API messages returns a 404, basically saying that it does not know where the routes are going. If we get a 404, it normally means that there is an issue with the way we defined our routes, which is up here. So we say message group UUID, that looks fine. The string is here. This goes over here, API messages. Very odd that that's showing up because this looks valid to me. Interesting. Oh, you know what? It's the @ sign. So we take out the @ sign here. We'll go ahead and refresh. We'll go back. We'll take a look here. Get message groups 200. I don't see for the other one. Here it shows a 401. So that usually happens if the token's not being passed along. Did we put it in both of them? I think we forgot to check one here. So I'm going to go to message group.js. And if we go here, we did set the authorization token for here for the load message groups data, but we forgot to do it for this one. So we'll go ahead and paste that in, and that will resolve that issue. And we'll refresh. I hope we get messages. It'd be so exciting if we got messages, and we don't have messages. And here it says DB is not defined. And that's because we added code that wasn't initially there. So if we go back into our, what is it called, messages.py in our backend service, we just don't have that there. So if we just import that from libdb, import db, that will resolve that issue. We'll refresh. Okay, now what do we have? We have this credential provider thing. This sometimes happens. I think this just has to do with DynamoDB local and nothing else. And so what I find is that I just refresh and then sometimes it just works. Okay, now we're getting this none type object non-scriptable for if model errors is not none. So this is happening in the app.py. So if we go to the app.py and jump to line 162 as it's suggesting, basically it's saying model is null. So messages is not returning what we were expecting it to return. So let's take a look if I forgot a return statement. And you look, I did. So let's put a model on it there. And that is not a code trap. That's just a mistake, okay? We'll go back and refresh. And now we're seeing our messages. Now the question is this the newest or oldest message? Because we want to make sure that this should auto scroll to the bottom, but the other part of it is that message should be at the bottom. So what we can do is check our seed data within our DynamoDB one. If we go down here, we should be able to see right at the bottom what the last one is. Definitely, I think his character is great as an example for the show. So that's the one we want to see. If we go here, we can see that it's actually at the top. So it's in the wrong order, and we want that to be at the bottom. So, I mean, you might think that if we did a scan forward index, that would fix the issue, but that would not help because it's the fact that it is showing us the latest one. It's just that it always sorts it at the top. So what we have to do is actually just reverse the items in our code. So if we go to ddb.py, here we just need to reverse these items. And so I had a more complex way of doing reversing, but I found out that that is ChatGPT lied to me, and we could just type in reverse. And it actually does it in place for some odd reason, and so that will return the items in the opposite way. And so if we flip this, refresh, it should have went to the bottom. Hold on, we're in DDB, yeah. So we'll refresh this again, and it's not putting it at the bottom. So we'll go back over here. It is reverse, right? That's how you spell it. Yep. Yeah, it should, unless we're doing it for the wrong one. List message groups. Yeah, we're doing it on the wrong one. So what I'll do here, I thought I was in messages. I'm not. We'll just save that. We'll go down to the right place and we'll go ahead and paste that in. Items.reverse. If you assign it items equals items, we'll find out it's null, and I wasted a lot of time on that. And if we go here, now we have this at the bottom. So now that we know that there's that easier reverse function, we can go back to our seed file here, because we did some weird thing to reverse the order when we were trying to print them down below here. And I found out, like, it's just weird the way we did it. If I can find it. You know, it was in our patterns, I think, for get conversation. Yeah, it was this weird thing. So this wasn't working. Actually, I think I had a number 2, and that's why it wasn't working. So maybe this does work for reverse, but let's just do it the easier way, which is just type in reverse. Reverse. That's a hard word for me to say. So we'll do that, and so that will be more congruent with our other code. Okay, so now that we have, and I know sometimes this is not displaying, again, it's not, DynamoDB in production will work fine. It's just that we're using the local and it's messing up. Maybe we're running out of memory or something, I don't know. But anyway, the next thing we want to do is be able to hook up this create message. So that's what we're going to do next. So what I'm going to do is make my way over here, and what do we need to pass along here? We need to have the message group UUID, user ID. So this is that, it's supposed to be UID. So that's what we need to pass along. So let's see how we can pass that along. So I'm going to open up the form for that. It's called message form. And in our form here, we have this body here, and here we're passing this, which is not actually valid. So what I'm going to do is extract out this part here. And whoop, didn't take it. I'm just going to copy it and bring that above. Oh, come on, just copy. For once, copy. There we go, paste it in. And we will then do JSON here and take that out. And then up here, instead of doing this JSONify string, because we do it down below, I'm just going to assign that to this JSON function here. And what we can do instead is go here and do JSON.messageGroup UUID. And this is going to equal whatever the params is. So we'll say params message group UUID. Okay. And also we can just say, in the case that we have params, let's say handle, then we will provide the handle. Okay. And in the case that we don't, then we're going to just assume that it's going to be message group UUID. You might be asking, well, why are you doing these two conditions? Well, remember that in our pattern here, that when you send a message, it can either be you are creating a conversation for the new time, or you're updating an existing conversation. So if you're creating a new conversation, what we're going to do is pass along the handle and not the message group UUID, and then we're going to use that handle to create a new conversation for that case. So if the handle is present, then we know we're creating a new conversation, a new message group, or message groups, because we have to create 2 of them always. And if we have the message group UID, we're just adding a message, and then we're updating these, but these get updated in another pattern. So this technically, these get extracted over here, and this is our pattern D, and then this would be our actual pattern E over here. Okay, so like this would, and I didn't update this yet, but we would do this, and this would be like DynamoDB streams, right? And it would update those two, which would reflect on that, okay? All right, so we will go back over here, and so we have that if-else statement in here for params handle, message group UID. We'll figure out params handle because that will come a bit later. We have to create a new page and do something with that. But that should pass along the relevant information that we need in order to work with that page. So before we run it, let's just go to the back end and take a look at what we have set up for the create action, because it's probably wrong. So we're just looking for messages, post, and so here, user receiver handle, that's fine. That probably is possible. And actually, I don't know if we called it that. We might have just called this handle. I'm just going to say handle, so I don't have to update that. And then this, it could be the message group UUID here. And we don't want to hard code things anymore, so we'll take that out. Now we are creating a message, so we are going to need the stuff here. And at some point we'll refactor this to make this a bit easier. Some students have done homework stretch goals and made that stuff easier, but also it could have made it harder for them depending on what implementation they did. I know some people went above and beyond and implemented things like Envoy. Okay, so we'll go here. And yeah, claims are fine. That is fine. What I want to do here is grab, we'll just not grab this part yet, but we'll bring this down here for a second. So we want to pass the message along. If we have the handle, we will pass along the handle. If we have the message group, we will pass along the message group. UID, message group, UUID. We should pass along the Cognito user ID as well. Okay. And so I'm going to just take this code here, cut it, and we will bring it down and replace it in our messages here. And yeah, that should be okay. I think the indentation is just messed up here, so we'll just fix that real quick. Actually, we have it twice, so we'll delete out the first instance of it. Okay, so now it's calling this create message, which it was doing before. So let's go into our create message and take a look at what we have here. Some old stuff. So what we're going to do is go here, and again, we're in week 5, and we'll click back in here, and I'm going to go into services, and I'm going to go ahead and go into create message. We'll go ahead and grab all this stuff, and we'll probably have to make some modifications to these files, as I've been doing this entire time. We'll go ahead and paste that in. Go all the way to the top. We don't need Memento right now. We'll have to figure that out as we go. We'll delete that out. So DB, DDB, that looks good. Mode, message, Cognito, user ID, message group UID, user received. So yeah, I guess the thing is that when we are implementing our code in app.py here, it really depends on what we have, because if we have one or the other, I suppose we could do some additional code. And I think that's something that I did. So let's go take a look at our backend Flask here and just see what additional stuff that I added. So we go create message, message here, create message. Yeah, so we do have some checks here. So in this case, we have this if-else statement, and that's something that I think we'll want to do. So let's go ahead and grab that. I also noticed that the JSON request is a bit different. We're doing a get on here, and I think that we should actually do that, because in the case that it's not there, it will actually cause a problem. So I'm just going to replace those here as such. And I'm just going to call this one handle, because we kept that more simple there. And we will bring that in, and so that will resolve that issue. I wonder if we have to do that for message as well. In here, I don't do that. The reason we have to do this is because they can be null, right? Or none. because these are optional, where this one we always expect it to be there, and that's why we didn't do that one that way. So, oh, again, sorry, we want to copy this stuff here. So we'll go ahead and copy that. And we'll go back over here. And I'm going to just go ahead and replace that. And one key difference here is the fact that, whoops, our indentation messed up there on the paste. But the idea is that if the message group UID is none, then we want to explicitly say that we're going to do a create, else we're going to want to do an update. So that we added this extra one just to make that very explicit when we are talking about the action that we're doing. The reason we check the mode is that based on whether it's an update, then we should check that the message group user UID should exist. If it's the other way around, then the user receiver handle should exist. So things like that, okay? And we use it also down here. So if we're doing an update, we're going to create a message. Otherwise, if it's a create, then we're going to create the message group there. And so I think for this, we're going to come back to this here in a moment. So I'm just going to comment out this because this looks a little bit simplistic. At least maybe it'll be more complex in here. But we'll comment that out because right now we're only focused on creating a new message when the user group already exists. So we have to make sure that this exists. So we'll go into our DDB here, and we don't have it in there yet. So we will go back over here, and we'll click back, and we'll go into our lib, and then into our DDB. And we will go ahead and grab our create messages, or create message, and we'll have to modify that. So we'll go back here, and I'll go ahead and paste it in to the bottom into our DDB. And so here we have client message group user ID or UID message, my user ID, my user display name, my user handle. Okay, so what is it going to do? Well, it's going to generate the UID. Remember, DynamoDB can't generate these for us, so we have to make them ourselves. We are creating a record with message and message group UID. That is the same to which we want over here. We've already done this stuff before, so we don't have to double check our models, but you can see if we have a message group UID, those match up, okay? Created a message UID, that all looks good. Insert the record into the table, so CRUD messages. We'll put the item, very straightforward. So this is code that we've already seen before. So I think for the most part, this should work. This looks pretty simple enough. Yep. Now, the only thing that we didn't do here is we didn't ensure that the put actually worked. So, you know, for additional code, we should probably check to make sure that the put was successful before returning the results, but I'm not doing that. If it's an issue, we'll fix that later down the road. I'm going to give this a hard refresh, not that that was necessary. I'm going to type in testing 1, 2, 3, hit message, and see if we get an error. We have this credential provider error. That is a misleading problem. I'm just going to submit that again until we get something that looks normal. Come on, try again, please. Nope, it's complaining. So when that happens, I'm just going to go down. I'm going to do completely compose down. Wait for everything to shut down. Great. Looks good. Hit space. Hit space on that one. I'm going to do a compose up. And this is just what it's like working in Gitpod and Docker. So, you know, I'll be back here in a moment, okay? All right, so let's go back over here and take a look. All our stuff is running again, and we'll try this again. Hopefully our token has not expired, but it might have. So we'll refresh this here. We'll click into here. We'll type in a message. We will go back here, and hopefully we will see something more valuable, but I don't have the logs open, so we'll go ahead and do that. So let's take a look here. We'll click in here. And we will go into the backend Flask. We will see what shows up. A 200. So that is fine, but I wanted to see that new message created. Submit that again. We'll go down below. I don't see any activity there. I don't like that. So we'll right click here. We'll go inspect. We'll take a look at our code, see what is happening. Expand down below. Expand this here, and cannot set property JSON for object where only is a getter. So it seems like it's working, and then it's not being able to set the message, or something's messing up here. Anyway, we'll go take a look at our code here. So maybe we have a different problem on our hands. And this is in our message form. So I'll jump over to there. What's our problem? JSON equals message. Well, I don't think that should matter, but I can do that. Go back over here. Oh, did we set a let on this? Okay, let's do a let. There we go. We'll give this a, close that tab, give this a nice refresh here. We will type something in, hit enter, go back over here. No such file or directory, users create message users.sql. Is that something we need to do? We'll go over to create message here. We do have a template here. Right. So in this file here, we have to be able to get all the different, like all the users in the conversation. And so we have this here called create message users. So we'll go here and go into our DB directory, into our SQL and into our users and create this new file, call it .sql. And we will go ahead and get the relevant code in our backend here, wherever we put it. What happened to the code? I have it over here. Go back over here. We're in week 5 as per usual. I'm just going to click back, DB, SQL, users. In the create messages users SQL, we'll copy the contents of that. We'll paste it in here. As you can see, the way it works is that if there is a Cognito user ID, then it will see if that's the sender, or if it's the user receiver handle, it will consider them the receiver. And so that way we can separate them out over in our create message here, say my user or other user. And so that way we are able to have that information. That becomes more important when we are doing the create message group, which we'll find out here later on, okay? So I'm gonna go back here and now hit send. And we'll go back here and see what error we have now. We see you have none type non-subscriptable model errors. We've seen that before when we didn't have returns. Are we missing our returns? We are, look at that. We'll type in model. It's like, I just hate returning data. And we'll refresh here. We'll do this. Let's scroll to the bottom. Did it create it? It did. So there you go. We have our create action working. So that was quite the challenge there. But going back into our visualization here, I'm just pulling it back up here. We implemented this pattern here, not this part of it though, but we do need to be able to create a new conversation. So the way we're going to create a new conversation is we need a different kind of URL. So I think what I want to do is have like new / and then their handle. And so then that will be the place where we create a new new conversation. So what I want to do is make our way into our front-end application and go into app.js. And then in our message groups, our message group page, we're going to copy this one, bring this one down, paste this in here. And we're going to create a new one here called new. And then this is going to be handle. And then here, this is going to be called new. And then we'll go to the top here and we'll say message group new, and then we'll say new here. So I already have all this code here, and where we're going to grab this just to save us some time is this is in the commits. So if you're in week 5 again, that's what it's called, week 5 again. Actually, sorry, it's just in week 5 again, right? Week 5 again is what we're working in right now. And you go into the should be able to create message commit history. All you have to do is go to the code, make sure you're on week 5 again, and go into commits. Sorry, I meant to go over here, commits, and we go into the last one here. There's a lot of code that we can borrow. So what I'm looking for here is I want to bring in this new page called message group new, and I'm not seeing it in here, which is interesting. Did we not commit that code? Huh, where did it go? Does Gitpod still have it? Dashboard. Okay. Yeah, it seems like I have some code that's not committed, so I'm just going to open this up here, this other environment, and commit it. I was going to say, I thought some of my stuff was missing there. Just give this a moment. I'll be back here in a second, okay? All right, so this environment took a while to spin up, but I can see a lot of files missing, but these are the ones that we actually need. So implement extra pages. So I'm just going to commit that now. And I think I can go back over here and go into, where do we want to go? Back over here a step. Week 5 again. Into the commits. Here we go. Okay, so this is the code that I really want. We are, just want to make sure we're not closing our environment. So our environment's over there. This one is the one I just committed. Okay, so we'll close that out here. And we will leave this one open here. And so now we can grab some of the code that we need. So what we're going to need here is this new page called message group new page. Okay, and what I want you to do is just go ahead and grab all this code. Okay, and we'll go back over here and we'll create a new page here called message group new page.js. And this pretty much is the same as the other page. The only difference is that we stripped out some code from it. Apparently this still has the cookies in here, so we'll take that out. And we probably want that auth stuff in here. So going back to any page, we'll go grab and check auth, and we'll just paste that in there. And then we will just go replace the check auth function here and pass in set user. The key difference here is that in the message group feed, we're passing in this thing called other user. And up here, we need to load in this profile data, because the thing is that when we are, when we have this conversation here, and normally this would show up properly. Hold on here. We'll go back to messages. The idea is you're supposed to see like a filler one up here, like a example of a possible message that we're going to have. And so that's what we need to put in here. So in order to do that, we need to load in some data, because at this point, all we have is the handle name. So here would be like something like Londo or something. That is something we'll need to do. We also need a third user. So what I want to do is go update our seed data and add a new person. So what we'll do is go over to our seed.sql. This person doesn't have to be in the Cognito database. They just have to exist for our purpose. I'm going to choose a Babylon 5 character named Londo Molarari. I like to use him because he looks really funny. So he looks like that. That's his hair. So we'll go ahead and grab his name. And I'm going to go ahead and paste this on in here like this. And I'm just going to call him L Molari here. And he's a Centauri, so that's his race. And he'll be Londo, and his stuff can be mocked. Now, I don't want to have to restart this and rerun all the seed information, so I'm just going to create a connection here. Okay, to our database. And from here, I'm just going to run this manually. So I'll say insert up to here, values here, grab this one here. And now Londo exists, so that is as simple as that is. We do need to create a new API endpoint for this param short. This is just for us to get some profile information, because we just need their display name, some basic information. So in our app.py, we'll go back over to that, app.py. And we'll have to go ahead and add that endpoint. So I'm going to just go to the bottom here, or almost the bottom, and we'll paste that in there. So if we go back into this file here, it probably will appear in our app.py. If I could just find it, app.py here. There we go. And so we're going to need a new service called users short. I don't know why I went to the bottom when I just had to scroll right back to the top, eh? We'll go to the top here, and we will just paste in this new service here and go all the way back to the bottom here. And we will go and grab this code here. Okay, and we'll paste that on in. And so the idea is that we have the handle, we pass it in here, we'll have a new service called user short. So, and we'll just pass in the handle. So we can file new user short. Now we are grabbing publicly available information, so we don't need to protect this endpoint like our other ones here. This is called user short.py. And so here on the left-hand side, we should have something called user short.py right here. And so we'll go ahead and grab that contents. All this stuff is pretty straightforward. It's not nothing complicated. So that's why I don't mind copying and pasting this here. In here, we have to have a template, so user short. So in our DB directory, SQL, and our users, we'll make a new file here called short.sql. And then on the code here on the left-hand side, I'm going to go ahead and grab this here and paste it in. Great. So that user short endpoint should work. We also need to display a like one of these. Now we could modify and have like if-else statements, but I decided just to create an entirely new element because we ended up ripping out a lot of stuff here. So on the left-hand side, if you go to message group new item, that is that new item, and it's a very stripped down version of message group item. So we will go into our components here and say message group item.js, or sorry, message group new item, new item. And then we can paste the contents in there. And so, yeah, it's very simple. It's taking props and it does it takes a user. And so that user has a handle, display name, and stuff like that. And so that's that. We do need to update our message groups feed because that is now changed. So if we go over here into our message group feed, you can see that we're importing that new item. So let's go grab that new item at the top and paste that in. We will go back over here and make an if-else statement in here to conditionally show that there. And then we need to actually display that item, so in the collection above it. And so we'll do that there, right here. Okay, we'll save that, refresh, see if anything breaks. And so there it is, it's selecting it. So that's our empty conversation, but the idea is that this one now needs to send the appropriate information. Now up here it is setting handles, so technically it probably already is hooked up to do what it needs to do. The only thing that it probably doesn't do is redirect after creation. So the idea is that when we submit this, we want to just redirect to the correct page, and we'll do a hard refresh, even though that's probably not what we should do. We should probably update the routes like via anchors or whatever it is, push state, but just to keep this simple, we're going to redirect. So we'll have to update our message form. I have a feeling I probably did update that there. So we go here, and we already have these conditional ins. But what's different here is on the status 200. So what we're going to do here is have a conditional, and if that's the case, it's going to redirect here as instead, and if it's not, it's just going to push the message in place. So we'll go ahead and grab lines 42 to 47 there. In fact, we'll grab all 41 to 47 actually. And if we're in our message form, and we are, we'll scroll down to here and we'll just copy and paste over that line. And we'll just make sure our indentation is fine. Actually, it is fine, our indentation. And so that should redirect if it is able to create a new record there. But we need to go and make sure we implement that code. So we'll go into our create message because that's where they both go, I believe. And we had this commented out. So we'll have to bring this back. Okay, and so we have create message group. This one is create a message. And so that seems okay to me. Let's go into our our services, and no, sorry, not our services, our DDB is lib, DDB here. And now we need to add in that create message group. So what we'll do here is in the code here, I think we already have it, so maybe we can grab it from here if we can. DDB. Here we go. And so, yep, that's this whole function here. So go ahead and grab it. I'll just paste it here below. And we do need to include in this Boto exceptions here. So I'll walk you through this code. In fact, we spent a lot of time in the video you cannot hear any audio in. We had to do a lot of modification from the original one because I originally was doing a transaction for this. But what I found out is that ChatGPT gave me a mix of transact write and batch write. And also I figured out that I don't really need a transaction here. So I changed this to a batch write item. And so, yeah, there was a lot of confusion going on there. But the idea was that here we generate out the UID for the message group. We are setting the my user group from my perspective, and then we set it from the other person's perspective, and then we set then we create the message that we need to have, and then we have this data structure, and we pass that into batch write item, which takes request items. If you're not sure what this thing is, you can always look it up and go Boto 3, and we can find it there. That's pretty much how I got the code for it. It gives you all the definitions there. And so that should create the two message groups and the message, okay? All right, so I think that's all we need there. Let's go ahead and try it out. So we'll refresh here. I'm gonna say testing 1, 2, 3. And so this should redirect if it creates successfully. It did not do what we wanted to do, and it has a problem. It says create message group missing one a positional argument called message. So that is in create message group, and we do pass the message here. So I'm gonna go check messages now, create message, and see if we're passing it there. We must just be failing to pass it, or it is null. So looking here, looks like we're not passing the message along. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy that, paste. I'm gonna go refresh, hit enter. It redirected, shows the message. There we go. Okay, so we are now caught up to where I was before. We are an hour shorter than the original video that I had recorded prior. I really do apologize because I rushed through this. It's an hour and 40 minutes, so we really did condense this quite a bit. Whereas in the original video, I talked a lot more. But the problem is that I can't spend the same amount of time as I did last because that time is now lost and we have to keep pace for this week. So hopefully you are still absorbing a lot of information, even at the pace that we're going at. We're not done with DynamoDB. We still have to do the DynamoDB streams, but we are done a lot of the implementation. So we are in really good shape. I'm going to go ahead and commit this, and we are going to say implement Flask backend for DynamoDB, or implement DynamoDB into our application. So there we go. So I will see you in the next video. I don't even know how the DynamoDB, I know how a DynamoDB stream works, but I haven't looked at Baco's code, so I don't even know what to expect there. So, you know, it might be copy paste and easy peasy, or there might be more stuff involved, but we'll see how that goes. Ciao, ciao.